Welcome to Keep It Moving, the podcast by New Perspective Fitness for older adults who want to stay strong, active, and independent. I'm your host, Tiffany Hill, and I'm here with Brian to discuss the 4 components of a well-rounded fitness program designed with you in mind. We're going to break them down, spark some conversation, and see how you measure up. So I'm here with my husband, Brian, and we're going to talk about the 4 key components that your fitness program should include as an older adult. But first, let's dive into the latest stats.
Okay, so according to CDC, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, in 2020, about 1/4 of adults aged 18 and over met the physical activity guidelines for both aerobic and muscle strengthening activities. Now, that is for people 18 and older, but we're here to talk about people who are 50 and older. So what are those numbers in terms of people who are that old?
Once we start looking at older adults, the compliance rate actually drops even more. So instead of that, 25% of people that are meeting the guidelines, it's even less. It actually varies based on gender. So looking at men ages 50 to 64, it drops down to 21%. And then when you look at men who are 65 and older, it drops down even more to 15%. For women, so for women age 50 to 64, it drops down to 17%. And then sadly, when we look at women who are 65 and older, only 10% of women are meeting the guidelines. And these guidelines, by the way, is the minimum amount of physical activity that you should be engaging in to reap the benefits.
So I'm surprised by that because I know plenty of older women, mainly through you, mostly your clients, and they're the ones who are out there working. They're the ones who are being physically active and taking kind of charge in terms of that. But it's just weird that more women are doing it in my own reality, in my world, but in the general population, it's less. Is it because, what's the reason for that?
I think there's a couple things at play. So first of all, when we look at older women, they live longer. So it's more saturated. There's more women than men. So that might skew the statistic. Also, when you think about women, don't think about my clientele, but think about women that are physically active. They might not meet the guideline for the strength training. A lot of women are out there walking,
yes,
but are they actually stimulating their muscles to prevent osteoporosis, which is a huge issue as we're older, especially as women? Or are they building their muscles with working with bands, working with dumbbells, working with machine weights? So it could be the fact that they're not strength training, and so therefore they don't meet the guidelines.
Okay. So before we were going to say there's 4 key components to fitness programs, but this only is taking into consideration 2. It's taking into consideration aerobic and strengthening.
Yes.
So what are the other 2?
Yes, the other 2 as older adults that we want to incorporate into our weekly repertoire when it comes to exercise would be balance training and flexibility training. Now, the reason why it wasn't studied is when you're looking at the large population of 18 and older, when you're younger, you don't need to be concerned about flexibility training as much because you still have elasticity in your joints. You don't need to be concerned about balance training as much because you're not at risk for falls.
Yeah.
And then another component is it's really hard to study balance training and flexibility training because some people incorporate it into other aspects of fitness. So an example is someone might do yoga. Well, what do you really count that as? It's balance training, it's body weight strength training.
Yeah.
So when we look at the younger population, they're not going to study that. But everyone age 18 and above should be doing cardiovascular training, getting their heart rate up to a stressful level for their lungs, for heart health, for their blood pressure, and everyone should be strength training. But when you're younger, you don't have to be worried about balance and flexibility as much.
Yeah, but you should honestly still.
If you're asking me, absolutely, you need to be incorporating them at every age. It's just more As an older adult,
it's more important.
It's much more important.
Okay. All right. So can we go through one by one? I want to go through one by one.
No, each
one
component.
And
Absolutely.
just, because I mean, maybe people don't know what they all entail. I'm sure.
So I'll ask you.
Okay.
So aerobic exercise, walking, cycling, swimming, something that gets your heart rate up. So how many minutes a week do you think we should be exercising? Or if we look at Monday through Friday, how many minutes per day do you think you should be engaging in cardiovascular exercise that stresses out your heart?
My guess would be like 20 minutes.
Okay. So, and now I need to be a little bit more specific with my answer. It's really 30 minutes of moderate activity, because when we look at older adults, most likely they're going to be engaging in moderate physical activity, not high intensity. So the statistic is you should be engaging in physical activity for your heart 150 minutes a week, or we could say 5 days a week for 30 minutes of brisk walking. Now, if you're a jogger, if you're someone who's running, or if you play competitive badminton, that's very vigorous. So you only have to exercise for 75 minutes.
So this town, I'll tell you right now, this town I know for a fact is not a badminton town.
Badminton, Badminton is my favorite sport of my college roommate. So I tend to say badminton a lot. So pickleball, or like if you're playing tennis, that's more vigorous. So if it's vigorous activity, you only have to do 75 minutes. But ultimately, you have to be engaging in a physical activity that stresses your lungs and stresses your heart.
So I know we have obviously a lot of people who play badminton. Does golf, for somebody that I know, it's not me, but for golf, like, is that an excuse that I can say, hey, T, I got to go do some moderate exercise and play 18?
Okay, again, we have to define what that is. So if you are pulling your the push cart, then you are in moderate physical activity. If you're riding a cart, that's considered light physical activity, and it's not stressful enough to give you health benefits.
So as long as I'm walking,
yes,
you can't say no to me.
Valid.
Yes.
If that's the whole point of you going out and golfing, hey, I'm doing this for heart health, I'm doing this for my lungs, you got me.
But I can't have a beer.
No. That would negate all the good that you've done.
Fine, I guess. Okay, so now we've covered aerobic. What about
strength training? Yeah. Okay, so for strength training, if you're looking at a week's time, let's talk frequency. How many days a week do you think that we should be exercising to reap benefits?
I would say minimum 3 to 4, or out of 5 days, 3.
Okay, you actually only need to strength train twice a week to get the benefits.
That seems...
Remember, these are the minimum. This is the minimum that you should be exercising. If you do more, you're obviously going to, you can gain more muscle faster. So there's more benefits the more you exercise, but we're just talking about the minimum. So this can help fight against osteoporosis, or if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, you can actually improve the state of your bones by stressing out your muscles. Strength training can help with blood pressure. It helps with diabetes regulation, because muscle is active tissue. So the more muscle that you have, then it actually is burning more calories. It increases your metabolism, can control blood sugar levels.
So, but when you're saying 2 days a week, like, how long do I need to be in the gym on those 2 days?
So you need to, it's a lot actually. So 2 days a week, but you need to hit all the major muscle groups. So I'm talking shoulders, chest, back. You need to do biceps,
but I have
triceps.
To do those each. I have to do each of those things twice a week?
Yes, you have to hit every single muscle group twice a week, ideally a day of rest in between.
Okay.
And then you should do 2 or 3 sets. So if I say for your chest, you need to do chest pressing, it's not just one and done. You need to do it again. Okay. So you have to do every muscle group. You have to do it twice through. Yeah, I mean, so you're looking at if you have a good warm up and cool down, it could be 45 minutes to an hour of strength training.
Okay.
And that's on top of the 150 minutes of moderate activity that you need to get in for your heart and your lungs.
So it is, I mean, even though we're saying it's the minimum, it's still, for Americans,
And
it's a lot.
that's why 75% of all Americans aren't meeting the guidelines. And then when you look at older adults, it's even less.
Okay, fair enough. Now, so wait, I want to ask one quick question because I had it in my notes. So things that when we're doing strength training, I think a lot of us sometimes might push ourselves too much. Are there certain things that we should be avoiding when we're strength training?
Well, first of all, you cannot hold your breath. So when you're strength training, if you're focusing too hard at the exercise and you're not breathing, that's actually extremely detrimental to your body. You're not getting oxygen to your working muscles, and you can negatively increase your blood pressure.
Oh, wow.
When we work out, our systolic blood pressure, so that is our top number. So, a general rule of thumb is be 120 over 80. That 120, when you exercise, it's going to be elevated. And we want to see that. That's a good stress on your body. But if you're holding your breath, it creates a negative stress on your body.
Okay.
So make sure that you're breathing. Another aspect of strength training, which is very unique to this form of physical activity, is you can get delayed onset muscle soreness. And
So
we call it DOMS.
Yeah.
And it's not when you're training. If when you're training, you might feel
Like
soreness and fatigue.
Yeah.
But I'm talking 12, 24, up to 48 hours after strength training, your muscles can feel sore, really sore.
Almost to the point where you think that there's something wrong with you.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with you. It's just you tore muscle fibers, which is a beautiful process of working out. That's what we want to happen. And when you try a new exercise, or if you're new to strength training, you're going to feel that. Now, ways that we can make that less pronounced is by starting slow. Start easy.
Yeah, don't go and try and do the most weight you can possibly do.
Exactly. And another thing we need to talk about is repetition. So if you're chest pressing or if you're doing a row, how many times should you do it? And for older adults, we like to stick around 10 to 15. And then when you feel more advanced and you want to increase the weight more, you could do 8 to 12 reps.
Okay.
And remember, that's 2 times.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've covered strength.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to go into number 3, which is my least favorite of all of them.
Flexibility.
I am not a flexible person.
Right.
And I already know that that's like detrimental to my future health. I know I need to do more of that. So,
and honestly, it's only going to get worse because
tell me,
our joints start
every day.
Yes. We start to lose collagen and we lose elasticity. And so as we get older, it starts in our 30s. We just become more and more stiff. But you can gain flexibility at any age. The reality is there are things that you can do. You can do mobility drills. You can stretch your muscles, tendons, and ligaments, and you can gain flexibility. You just have to be consistent. Now, how many times do you think for an older adult, on a minimum, how many times should they be stretching?
So based on what you said earlier, older adults need it more.
Yeah.
So 3 days?
Yes. Well, 2 to 3 days.
Okay.
On an absolute minimum. But then it says ideally stretch every single day to get maximum benefits.
Yeah, I could see stretching is something that you can do anywhere. So you don't necessarily need.
You don't need any equipment.
Yeah.
You could use a stretching strap, but you could just as easily use a belt or a towel or a tie.
And a wall or whatever, just to leverage and stuff like that. So then what are I know when we talk about the benefits of like obviously strength, what are some of the benefits of flexibility? In terms of, I don't want to pull a muscle, I know that's one of the benefits, but what are the other ones?
So injury prevention is good. If you have osteoporosis or if you have joint issues, stretching your muscles, tendons, and ligaments is going to bring more blood flow to the area. Blood flow helps with healing. I had a client, he has knee pain, and we started stretching his calves. This was just part of our general repertoire. And he's like, wow, I feel so good. And it feels so good, especially when I stretch my calves. And it's because when you stretch your calf muscle, your lower leg, if you have a tight patellar tendon, which is a tendon in your knee, stretching your calf muscles can ease tension on that patellar tendon. So stretching muscles around joints can help your joints feel better.
Now, is there a specific Like I know obviously everything is connected. You know, everything is connected. Is there a specific name or like I remember I can't remember you were talking to me about it, but is it like a reflex or like what is it?
Oh, yes. We were talking about this. So when you stretch, there's an opposing reflex. So let's say I'm doing a hamstring stretch and I go to stretch down. Now your body is going to automatically oppose this stretch, and it's a reflex that's built in so that we don't overstretch and we don't injure ourselves.
Okay.
When we age, that reflex becomes more pronounced, and that's not a good thing. What that means is when I go to stretch, I'm going to feel more resistance. It's like
something somewhere is pulling against.
There's more resistance. So in order to get the maximum benefit out of a stretch, you need to focus on breathing deeply to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system.
So it's the same thing as like the strength training. You don't want to hold your breath while
you don't want to hold your breath. You need to breathe deeply, and then younger adults, they only have to stretch for 10 to 30 seconds. Older adults, we have to stretch for 30 to 60 seconds. I would really aim towards that minute. Okay. So it's a good thing that hopefully you're retired or you don't have young kids, because you really have to exercise quite a bit to meet the guidelines for health and fitness.
And even which is crazy because it's 2 days for most of these things.
Yes, on a minimum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So this one, I think, in my opinion, is one of the more important. I mean, they're all important, but in terms of older adults, something that they might struggle with, balance and stability.
Yes. So how many days a week do you think older adults should be participating in balance exercises? Now, this is specific to 65 and older, because I know we cater to, 50 plus, but this is 65 and older. How many days should they be engaging in balance training?
I would imagine 3 to 4, honestly, because you need to be doing it.
Actually, just 2 to 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like three days a week is good. The time, it actually varies based on the resource that you're looking at. So some resources say 10 to 15 minutes per session is sufficient. Others say really aim more towards 20 to 30 minutes of balance training.
Okay. And like, I think one of the things like with flexibility, I know I need to stretch. With strength, I know I need to like lift some muscle, like lift some weights. With aerobic, I need to be moving. With balance, what does that even look like?
Balance training, it depends on where you're at, right? But for older adults, we basically want to challenge 3 different systems, and you don't have to do it all at once. You could just challenge one. So with balance training, first think of your base of support. So a more narrow base of support. If you stand with your feet hip distance apart, that is a wide base of support.
Yeah.
If I have you stand with your feet together, that is challenging your base of support, and it's challenging what we call proprioception. So that's the body's ability to sense its position, movement, and orientation. So you're getting feedback from your muscles, from your tendons, from your ligaments, and that is proprioception. So standing with your feet closer together, that's challenging proprioception. Another system that you can challenge is vision.
Okay, I was just
so if you were to close one eye, which is really, really intense, that is challenging your vision. Now you could stand with a wide base of support and close one eye. That's a way to challenge your balance.
So it's that hard, like, because I don't realize that, but standing on one leg, closing one eye, is that extremely hard?
Absolutely, especially when you are an older adult.
Okay.
And then finally, the last system that we would challenge is your vestibular system. So that's your inner ear. And basically, this is similar to like vision, but when you're looking straight forward, that's where we feel most balanced. Once you start moving the orientation of your head, that challenges your vestibular system and the workings of your inner ear. So that's another way we can change. And it kind of plays with vision. But an example is, again, go to that narrow stance and look right to left. Or I have one video in my workout series with New Perspective Fitness, where I have my daughter, like Micah, is in the video, and she's walking, right? And we're supposed to track
Follow her across
as she goes across this. That challenges vision, but also your vestibular system. You're changing the orientation, and looking up and down is even worse for that vestibular system. But I mean that in a good way. It's a good challenge.
Okay. So those are it. Do you have the 4? You have all these things that you have to do.
Yes. Let's just do like a quick, let's just go over them. So aerobic training, what's that? Okay. So
Aerobic training,
150 minutes a week if you're doing moderate, which is brisk walking, or if you're doing vigorous, 75 minutes a week.
okay.
Strength training twice a week. Ideally, you're working all major muscle groups, and you should do that twice through.
Okay. Flexibility,
on the low end, you can do 2 to 3 times a week, ideally daily. You should hold a stretch for 30 to 60 seconds and stretch all the major muscle groups.
and balance.
So 3 times a week. And if you are at risk for falls, you should really do it more like 5 times a week. And that session could be 10 to 15 minutes or as high as 30 minutes for a balance session.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we covered all of them.
Yes.
And,
so how do you stack up? Like, are you meeting the guidelines?
well, I worked out today, so that's good.
Yes. So you got your heart rate up.
I got my heart rate up to 165 today.
So that's vigorous.
Yeah.
And how many minutes did you do that for?
I think at the end it was like 35.
Okay. So
Well,
you're
but I'm
over
sure I wasn't.
halfway in the vigorous.
Yeah, and I'm sure I wasn't. I'm not. That's interval training, so I'm not at 160 the entire time.
Sure.
But I know I'm above 130.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So next week, let's break down these components and go through if you have barriers, because we know that older adults
Absolutely.
are not meeting these guidelines. So let's address common barriers and offer solutions to get people more physically active.
All right. That sounds like a good idea.
Cool.
All right. So we will see you next time. I'm Brian, and this is my wife,
Tiffany.
And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.